Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Blockchain and Beyond, the series of podcasts by UWBO. I'm Amina, the strategy director of UWBO. Here in this podcast series, we will talk about blockchain, innovation, regulations, and all of that shape the future of crypto and Web3.
We're going to be diving into some really interesting topics with some very, very interesting guests.
So here I have two guests, Soheil and Stanford Cardoz. And here we'll talk about more about regulations in the UAE, about crypto scams, and what is the major issues we face today in our field.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alina.
Welcome to the Blockchain and Beyond, Stanford.
Thank you, Soheil. Happy to be here.
It's good to see you again.
Likewise.
And thank you, Amina, for that lovely introduction. So let's jump into it. Why not?
Sure.
So when you've actually when we first met, I think it was at a roundtable.
Yes, the DPO roundtable.
There was a lot of developments which we're eager to get to right now. As we stand right now, I just wanted to get a background on who is Stanford Cardoz.
Sure.
And where does the passion come from for compliance?
Sure.
Because regulating one of the largest exchanges in the Middle East, I think BitOasis, is accounting for huge transaction volumes in the space. But you can tell us about the complexities of that later, but let's get a introduction.
Sure, I'll give you a flavor. I've always had nomadic inclinations. Just to deep dive further, I've been with BitOasis for 3.5 years now, where I look at everything from the customer lifecycle to the transaction lifecycle, which is pretty much most of the controllership functions. Before that, I used to be in the banking industry for 12.5 years, where I built AML tech stacks. I managed fairly large compliance teams. But even before that, I was a sailor in the merchant navy. I guess that's where my nomadic inclinations come from. But I think those skill sets are transferable. I've always been drawn towards controllership, and I would definitely give my time in the merchant navy to have such a structured approach. And I guess blockchain is an easy pivot that encapsulates everything that I've learned so far.
So you mentioned nomadic
inclinations. Yeah.
Okay, so would it be fair to categorize you as a digital nomad?
Yes, that could encapsulate me, yes.
Awesome. So I think, look, what we're doing here is very pertinent because with what UBO is having right now, the United Blockchain Organizations, it's imperative that we actually have a unified voice in crypto. And that what unified voice means to me is that we're not all out there, lobbying our own interests or doing things just to fit our own agenda. Back in Canada, we had the Canadian Blockchain Association, and largely, if you look at what they're doing, it's a consortium of very large companies, right? But I feel like there's a lot of miscommunication mixed in with misinformation. And when it comes to actually progressing, because I know that there's things that we share in common, right?
Yeah. Of course.
And just on a personal level and as a professional level is largely it's how do we actually take things forward?
Sure.
And how do we not over-regulate and overcomplicate it?
Of course.
So my thing is, I know that you've witnessed some, you're a very active participant in the space. I've seen you speaking at the different things, and I know you hold some closed door, some meetings. So can you talk a little bit about how that process should take place and what you're doing to facilitate this process?
Happy to take this. So one of my mandates is to demystify the Web3 space, right? Make people understand the mechanics of the blockchain. And I believe with education, it becomes more adoptable. And I'll give you real life examples. I always use the allegory of banks. A few decades ago, when somebody tried to remit funds from A to B, there were different standards, but one fine day, everybody agreed to the SWIFT standard, which is the MT-103, and now agnostic of jurisdiction, if it's in foreign exchange, everybody adheres to the SWIFT standard, and that only came about through consensus, right? Different governments, different standard-setting bodies came to one room and said, you know what, this is the standard that we need to a bare minimum standard that we need to set to send value from A to B.
Yeah.
I believe those are transferable in our ecosystem, and that's where somebody like you come in, blockchain associations. When everybody come together, we can have one unified voice. A live example could be the travel rule, right? Many people suffer with the travel rule because there's no consensus on the mechanics of that, the standards of that messaging protocol. But if people like us in the private partnerships, or you guys as blockchain associations and governments all come together and say, this is the minimum standard and all jurisdictions need to adhere to it, life will become easy. It'll become easy from a compliance perspective, from a transfer of value perspective. And that's just one example. And that's why this is so close to my heart. I like public-private partnerships.
That's a good way of putting it. So, I mean, can you just it always just does go on my mind about like how that is accomplished. Could you give a little bit of information based off UWBO and how
Yes.
that's happening?
Yeah. So at UWBO, as you know, it's like a non-profit organization. And thanks for introduction, Soheil. We are uniting blockchain associations around the world. So, and the core driver here is not only unity, it's not only together community for the sake of community. It's the core driver of our organization is actually decentralized autonomous organization. Why we're using it is just because we want to, as we know, like blockchain is mostly for the sake of decentralization, for the sake of transparency. So we want to use this transparency, and we want each business, we want to find the true expert in all of the world, and we want to hear their voice. So that's why they're using our platform which we built. It's like completely transparent. Everyone can use their own wallet and vote on specific questions, even like on a travel rule and here we can expand more and talk more with regulatory bodies across the world. So yeah, so the main driver is DAO, but also of course we have other pillars of operations like doing events,
Sure.
Where we gather all of the experts, technology leaders, events, research, because research is one of the crucial parts actually, because in traditional industries everyone just already doing this, right, in a professional manner, but I think in the blockchain we need to make it more professional. Sure. We need to make it to state it, and yeah, so it's what this is like very shortly what we are doing.
No, it's I think it's a critical factor, and more of a just the topic for today is regulation and compliance and scams.
Sure.
So let's jump into it.
Yeah, happy
Have
to.
you been scammed?
No, I haven't. I haven't touched wood,
Okay.
and I don't plan to. But this subject is really close to my heart, and one of the reasons is because we are one of the largest virtual asset service providers in the region. 99% of our database are retail customers, so it's our responsibility to protect them. Right? Not everybody would understand the guardrails. Not all of our customers would understand things like recourse and right to information and things like that. Yeah. So we take it upon ourselves to educate them at every step of the way. And I'll come to the guardrails that we have at BitOasis in a while. But what I want to start with are the types of scams, specifically scams that affect retail customers, right?
So more for the retail.
It's more for retail.
Scams, right?
Institutions and qualified investors, I believe, have the necessary expertise to do their own risk assessment before initiating a transaction, right? Because
Sure.
it's an entity. My main concern is protecting the little guy, and that's where we come in. But before going down that route, I would like to give you a flavor of the type of scams that we see, and this is agnostic of jurisdiction. It's more on human behavior, right? So Chainalysis recently came up with their 2025 crypto crime report based on 2024 data, and it showed that there was a surge in scam activity. There are many different types of scams, but for the purposes of this conversation, I'll stick to 3 or 4 major ones. The biggest one, and one of my biggest pet peeves, is pig butchering. And the reason this is annoying is because they
It's
target
got a very
vulnerable
wild
people.
name.
Yeah, it's a wild name. But to break that down, the reason, it's a story behind it. Like back in the day, they fatten the pig, and then eventually, when it's fat enough, they butcher it and have a meal, right? So that's the
The concept is fully understood right now,
yeah,
just
yeah,
by the
yeah,
name.
yeah, exactly. So there are different ways they do that. So there are a few stages. First is make initial contact. It could be a new friend. It could be a new romantic interest.
Yes, yes.
They engage them via
I
WhatsApp
think they
or
use
some
Tinder sometimes for
Tinder,
that. Okay.
WhatsApp. Through AI generated display
Be careful,
pictures.
people.
Yes, you really need to be careful, and this is a long con.
Okay.
This happens over months, and that's stage two, right? They call it fattening the pig. So it's over time you become comfortable with the counterparty, and that's when stage three hits in, which is the investment hook. Suddenly, after a few months, they'll say, you know what, I have an investment opportunity, and it's on the blockchain, it's new, or they have a sob story. They either tug at financial purse strings or emotional strings, right? Say, my mom's in the hospital, I need some money, but why don't you give it to me in Bitcoin? So there are different plays in their playbook, and you guys need to understand that this is not a one-man show.
Yeah.
There are
It's
compounds with professional con artists running the show. Fun fact, some of the professional con artists are victims themselves, but that's a conversation for a later day, where those con artists are actually kidnapped from developing countries. They are educated, but they don't have means and resources, so they are kidnapped to a compound. A lot of law enforcement agents have raided those compounds, so it's wider than the victim itself. A lot of victims in this
there's a lot
industry.
of human trafficking
Oh yes, it's
involved
human
as well.
trafficking,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
It's and this new human trafficking is where they kidnap people with some sort of educated background, engineers, people who can code, people who can
Wow.
speak English. So it's a very wide net. The good part is there's recourse. There's a lot of private partnerships. There's a lot of conversations with law enforcement and people like us who work in big exchanges, because we have the data and the typologies, and they have the resources in terms of capital to take action, right? So I think a few months back, one of the compounds in Cambodia was raided, but when one shuts down, another one pops up.
Yeah.
That's the
That's
nature of
the
the
nature
beast.
of it. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah. But the way we try to stop it is education.
Okay.
We have, at least at BitOasis, what we do is constant communication with our customers. We have blog posts out. We, at every step of the transaction, we tell the customer, are you sure that the counterparty is known? Is it reminiscent of a scam? Do you know if the token that you're dealing with is listed on CoinMarketCap, for example? Do you know if those transactions are going to a self-hosted wallet or another centralized exchange? So we have checks and balances at our end, but human beings are different. In spite of all these guardrails, people still transact with those illicit counterparties. But even if they do, we try to help them once that happens. Latency is important here, speed is key.
So just looking at the actual, what you mentioned the fact, the need of actually preventing these, and staying in a place like Dubai. The Dubai enforcement of police is, we've seen some of these cases of human trafficking, but they're fast to respond and shut these cases down. But Dubai is a fully vastly populated place. It's not easy to fully regulate that in terms of policing of that. But when you've spoken about the actions that you're taking, right, the question often comes as to say, right, I've been scammed, okay, now I've given this much money, it's gone. And a lot of the times when you follow up, you find that you're going down a lost alley.
Yeah, a
And
rabbit
that
hole. Yeah,
if that mystery man or that love boy or whatever you called it, butcher boy, pig boy, has managed to hop 2-3 hops away to a mixer, can pretty much be gone. My question is, what is the actual percentage from your view case that if you have been scammed, you will actually have fund recovery?
So it's a mixed bag. It depends on the sophistication of the scammer. It depends on the mechanics of the transfer of the value, on the type of blockchain used, on the type of bridge used to swap those chains. So it's not a one size fits all. However, it depends on, and that's where we come in, your centralized exchange. It's very important to have cutting edge blockchain intelligence tools. For example, we have two different type of tools. We have Chainalysis and Crystal that help us monitor transactions agnostic of the number of hops. We can do heuristic tracking, which is a bunch of addresses, and look at that behavior. But we can also look at a particular transaction and see if it has multiple hops, or if it has been swapped through different type of bridges, or if it's reached a mix-up. There are different tools now that allow for demixing, but it's still at a nascent stage. But to your point, yes, if it goes to a mixer, it becomes extremely difficult to actually monitor or trace that transaction again.
And if tracing is done and
Yeah.
you're able to identify, the funds in a centralized exchange wallet, or maybe there's some identity, it's been de-anonymized,
Yeah.
let's just say, what is the recourse from there?
So again, this is a challenging question, because let's assume it has gone to another centralized exchange. Now, if it goes to a centralized exchange in a jurisdiction that does not have blockchain regulations or a regulatory framework, then they do not respond to you. Then it's more about personal relationships. Pick up the phone and ask the chief compliance officer there, hey, this is reminiscent of fraud. Can you investigate yourselves? It becomes slightly easier if it goes to an exchange in a regulated jurisdiction, because then you have a mandated travel rule requirement. They have checks and balances at their end. They have blockchain intelligence tools and things like that. So like I said, it's a mixed bag.
Got you. I think that's because a lot of the times when you have to go to, for example, the cybersecurity departments or the police, and I found that in every country they have their own, based off the understanding of their, so like you mentioned, like when it comes to what you're doing after, I think the incident reporting and the ability to respond
Yes.
to the incidents is really, really critical. So my thing is, do you feel like right now, when you look at what has happened to, there's been hacks, there's not been hacks, but do you feel that BitOasis is any examples of it being hacked in the past, and any type of thing that you guys have like learned from that?
So hacks are a little different from scams. So scams, they target customers on our platform, and hacks target the platform itself.
Sure.
Touch wood, we've never been hacked, and please nobody try that. But yeah, but one of the reasons is we've got a pretty granular and very serious approach to cybersecurity. Sure. We are in the process of getting ISO certified. We do a lot of pen tests, vulnerability testing. We use third parties to come and see if there are any. It's not a bug bounty program, but we encourage ethical hackers to see if there are any bugs or loopholes in our system, and it's a continuous iteration. We do a lot of work, and we spend a lot of capital on educating people in-house on things like phishing. Yeah. There are a lot of malicious codes that can be funneled through if one of the admins click that link, and very similar to a Bybit hack that happened.
Should we talk about that?
We can talk about that.
Should we talk about the Bybit? What was your role? Not your role, obviously you didn't have a role there, but what was your take on that? It seemed like they had the safe, multi-sig.
Multi-sig, yeah.
What do you think? How were these hackers able to, do this?
It's a sophisticated hack, right? And I'm not going to pretend to be a cybersecurity expert, but a lot of people think that this was across a few months. It's there are two malicious smart contracts that were deployed. One is a call and other is a delegate call, where they fooled the signers to see that it's a vanilla transaction.
Yeah.
But like I said, this could happen to anybody without really robust cybersecurity protocols or custody protocols. That's why things like TAP policy, which is your transaction access policies, are very critical. You need to have video verifications, even though they are transactions that move monies from, let's say, a cold wallet to a warm wallet. Those protocols need to be in place. Again, I will not pretend to be a cybersecurity expert, but we use that as learning to revisit to see whether our controls are up to standard. We did a deep dive to understand what exactly happened there. We reiterated the fact that signers or people with signing authority are always vigilant. Don't use your work laptop for personal data and things like that, right? So yeah.
No, I think that was a big, obviously massive event, but when you actually look at what led to that, or the lead up to that, a lot of people were indicating that there was some inside attack.
Yeah, that's conjecture though. We don't really know for
a lot
fact.
of conjecture. I agree. Yeah, because if you actually look at the human element of these kind of scams or these hacks, usually there is some kind of overview that they're doing, and it's a massive plan that is a actual operation.
Yes.
And this is conducted over several months of investigating, of analyzing, of observing what the people are doing. And this could be from they do have these softwares that, like TeamViewer, they can go in, they can actually listen to what you're saying. They can actually plant devices, just to extract information to find out who are these people that have the signature to the multisig.
Of course.
And that's why when you speak to a lot of these companies that are getting into crypto, right, it's still a mystery as to what the level of risk is. I'll give you an example. Like there's companies that we're advising right now that are entering into crypto, and we all know about tokenization, right? This is obviously going to be a major pillar. It's a lot of them are coming, and these are being initiated by family offices, by different industrial, like different companies that want to get into it, and it's majorly the operational guys, and then they're tasked with doing this, but having a conversation with them is like, do you understand that you will be the one that is going to have to sign this custody that controls these funds, and if you make a mistake here, it's bye-bye.
Yeah.
So when it comes to that overall, we mentioned about incidents, what about training?
Training is a central pillar. You can't deploy controls on things you don't understand.
Correct.
So it's important, and it's tone from the top as well. Leadership need to also get their hands dirty to understand the mechanics of the flow of the transaction, right? So how do funds flow from, let's say, a cold wallet to a withdrawal wallet and things like that. It's very, very important. Everybody from the top to the bottom understand not just how funds flow, but what are the guardrails around it as well.
Interesting. Yeah, I think it's very crucial. I wanted to jump into something else. That's why you're here, actually.
Yeah.
I wanted to really get you here. PTSR.
Yes.
Okay. What is it?
So it's for the uninitiated. It's the new payment token regulation where the UAE has now created regulatory frameworks for Dirham-backed tokens. You can also have foreign-backed tokens, but you need a separate framework for that. This is specifically on Dirham-backed tokens. It's a new regulation by the Central Bank of the UAE. There are different ways to look at it. Like, for example,
So is it just Dirham-backed?
It's Dirham-backed.
Dirham-backed. Okay.
Yeah,
So that means AED.
AED.
Correct.
So again, a little more nuance to that. There are specific requirements for an AED-backed stablecoin, right? So
Correct.
you have custody, transfer, remittance, storage. So there are different requirements there. But
For all stablecoins?
so for AED-backed stablecoins.
Just for
however,
AED, okay.
however, if let's say somebody like us have a foreign-backed stablecoin, like a Tether, for example, or Circle, we need to inform the central bank or get an NOC from the central bank saying we have those stable coins. And this, I'm assuming, again, this is just my assumption, is because they want to look at things like capital flight,
Yes.
because they don't want a parallel economy, because there's a lot of adoption here. So that's one of the guardrails that they want to put in place.
That was actually in the summer of 2024.
Yeah, and that's one of the conversations that we
Feels
had
like,
about.
yeah, that was a conversation that we're having,
Yeah.
and I think there was a lot of shock because we were joined by Ripple and other,
Yeah.
you know, really, really esteemed people. But everyone was just like, okay, what do we do? It seems like from that point to this point, those NOCs have been, you know, achieved, and the
Yeah,
central
there are a
bank
lot-
is willing to work.
Of course.
Unlike Michael, which is just saying we don't want to work with.
Yeah, so
Not the same
and you know,
ones.
credit where it's due. A lot of our regulators here, they come to the table, they listen, they understand pain points here, and they pivot or restructure some clauses which are required to be restructured, right? So that's really, we are blessed to be in this region because there's always a partnership.
I'll amend to that, you know, because yesterday we were actually at ADGM.
Yeah.
And the topic of the conversation, it's amazing because, you know, Dmitry Fedorov is there.
Yeah, it's fantastic. He's
doing
ex-Vara
great.
as well.
Ex-Vara,
Yeah,
and
DLT Foundation
And
head.
but he spent, I think, a longer tenure in ADGM, and that.
Oh, yes, yeah.
That definitely shows something.
Of course.
You know, it's him essentially there, and you know they have the FSRA team behind them that are actually
Yeah.
helping out with some
Yeah.
applications. But when you look at ADGM,
Yeah.
it's largely a very small team of crypto, which is such a testament
Yeah.
to the level of work
Of
that they
course.
were able to output.
Yeah.
And that's amazing because a regulator is obviously, you know, we have a lot of sometimes over-regulation and regulation
balance, right?
from a place of fear.
Yeah.
There's no real balance
Yeah.
in that. And when you start to over-regulate and regulate from fear, that's not so. What they were discussing yesterday was essentially, okay, how we have this limited force, right? How do we use AI
Yeah.
to help, right? You know, and then different examples are there. You know, we ourselves are applying supervised learning to our data in order to kind
Yeah.
of help with compliance. And it's interesting to see these talks being, you know, held as to, okay, now AI is a tool that can actually help us kind of provide service and provide this thing in a large way.
Sure.
So what is your takes on?
So I'll double click into this conversation, right? People fear regulatory frameworks, but
Yeah.
I don't think they should. I think I would like to give a positive spin to this, right? So yes, we have different regulators and regulatory frameworks here. We've got ESCA at a federal level. We've got the FSRA that governs entities in the ADGM. We've got DFSA that governs entities in the DFSA, and you've got WARA that is crypto-specific framework for the Emirate of Dubai. However, there are a lot of nuances to each one of them. For example, DFSA has token taxonomy. They don't govern activity. They govern tokens and products. That's why you have Circle, who has got a license or some remnant of a license there. Most VASP.
DFSA is largely looking at, because I think Ripple got some
Yeah,
payments.
so it's a product, right?
Yes.
So Ripple, the XRP is a product, and that's why they're licensed there. But an activity like an exchange or a broker dealer or a custody, preferably you would get licensed in WARA if it's crypto specific, or you could get licensed in FSRA. Like for example, BitOasis is licensed in WARA, but you could have an M2, which is a competitor who's licensed in the FSRA. So there are different regulatory frameworks, there are different requirements, but in a sense, the controllership requirements are very similar when it comes to capital adequacy, when it comes to investor protection, when it comes to governance and supervision. Very similar requirements, but different levels of, let's say, reg cap that is locked. So again, you need to do your homework and you need to understand what your North Star is, what you want to achieve. And basis that, you can get licensed in any one of these jurisdictions. I would look at it as a positive step. You're not over-regulated. You have bespoke regulators for specific activities.
Absolutely. I think you can't say one is always.
Yeah.
I think it's just, like a testament, to the company, the regulators that are here, that are actually fulfilling their task, even if they're, not having and opening conversations with
Of
people
course.
to say, okay, this is our roundtable, please, let's have. So, do you have inputs on that end regarding the different type of, I think you can add some value there, because I think there's a piece that UWBO is putting out
Yeah.
with regards to the different type of license regulation programs.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So in terms of regulations and programs, I think what right now we're doing is actually we are not focusing only on UAE. We are making the research in terms of global perspective. We're doing some like nice matrices between regulatory clarity and regulatory, like it's more agile or not. For example, is like open, clear, and clear regarding the, for example, we know that for sure that in UAE we have like so many jurisdictions and in Hong Kong as well. But for example, what guys can you talk about US, about Europe?
Yes, but not very well.
Yes.
Yeah, so I think, yeah, exactly. It's like you can speak about the US, but there isn't a real program there.
Yeah.
But you can speak about MICA, and, it's going, I think. I'm not against it, but
Yes.
when you come and you say the number one form of payment transmission in crypto is banned
Yeah.
from all of our
Stable coins.
broker
Yeah.
dealers,
Yeah.
then you're going to look at a lot of friction. I think they have made that decision to do that based off better late than never,
Yes.
and to encourage their own. Obviously, the euro is a massive hard money, and in order to encourage usage of that, they've made this law. So they've kind of taken in that, let's just say, loss that they would incur from their crypto activities. But we will see if it pays off. That's the beauty of it.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
nobody's really seen the future,
No,
right? I'm pretty sure the powers that be in Mika have thought things through, and they've weighed the risk versus reward on
You'd be
decisions.
surprised sometimes about.
I'm an eternal optimist, but yeah, no. So yeah, I get it that a really valid point on stable coins and flight of stable coins from the European market. But they could pivot as well. I think stablecoin foundations could come to the table, probably register in Mika. You don't know. There are a lot of things happening in the background which we are probably not privy to. But like I said, I'm an eternal optimist. I think they will find a way eventually.
Yeah, that's a hopeful point.
Yeah, yeah. So guys, I have one question for you.
Sure.
So how do you think, like as you already told, that we have the problem of the consensus, that some people just overregulate,
Yes.
some people like underregulate. How actually how to make the mix of that such that new businesses, new blockchain companies will not see it like regulation as a burden, something that slows down their innovation. For example, how to give them idea is actually that they need to take it seriously, that they need to very focus clearly on the compliance and not only just on idea, for example, of even like family office or some other companies, just when they creating idea of tokenization platforms or whatever, they are starting not to some companies of especially young startups are starts not only from idea of platform, start from the technology, but not from the compliance base. Like what do you think, guys?
Sure.
How we need to be the best, take the best of the both worlds?
That's a very interesting question, and I would put the onus on the business owners. When I say business owners, it is everybody at leadership at that particular entity, right? I don't look at controllership functions as blockers. I like to see them as regulatory enablers, right?
Yeah.
And the mindset has to be growth with guardrails. Nobody is stopping growth. However, most controllership functions, be it compliance, audit, risk, etc., they just want to highlight risk that could be there in the future if necessary controls are not in place. I would like to look at the way we look at it is a regulatory rectangle. You could go towards the edge, but never dip your leg out of that rectangle. So you need to have that happy balance between growth and controllership, and that's how I see it.
I think the most protected consumer is the educated one.
Absolutely, yeah, no, 100%.
So we have a lot of. It's good to be in a room of like-minded professionals, but once we exit these four walls, general public is still keeping up with what is crypto, what is a token, what is a security asset, what is a what is this thing, and what is stablecoin?
Yeah, but I think that's where we
a lot
come
of
in.
people are still basically keeping up, and I feel like when we go into deep conversations, and people like yourself can go very deep into conversations because that's your profession, and then when these people are there, we somewhat forget that I think we've gone maybe 6 feet under.
Yeah.
And the people that are outside are still scratching their heads as
Of
to
course.
literally what is a stablecoin.
So that's where we come in, right? I consciously avoid jargon and technical language when I talk to lay people. I try to simplify it as much as I can, because you're not doing anybody a service by using big words when it comes to our ecosystem. They're just going to run away with it, right? If a mandate is to
More
demystify,
it's scary enough.
of course, if a mandate is to
with the
demystify,
FTX.
yeah,
With
of
all
course,
those things
and now
happening,
Bybit,
and now Bybit, and
yeah,
now-
yeah. So I think the onus is on us to demystify the space, use simple language, and get look at mass adoption.
True to that. So what happened? I just want to know in your personal life when you go out there and people find out you're BitOasis, and how's a cocktail party with Stanford for non-crypto natives?
But most people don't talk to me about controllership. They ask me how I can 10x my investment, and I'm like, yeah, this is the wrong person. I lose money. I stay away from the market because I'm not a trader. I'm not familiar with.
Or they're looking for inside information.
So I mean, and most broker dealers, they don't have insider information in any case, because they're not market makers, right? So, but yeah, I mean, and that's how I caveat all my conversations. I'm like, listen, don't listen to any investment advice from me. I'm not the right person. I can explain to you how the blockchain works, how Bitcoin is minted, and what are the use cases for stable coins, how you can.
Which you find that people are more interested in always just
Yeah,
getting the 10x instead of actually
I mean-
learning how we can actually transfer value across borders, border settle the dollar, and just make a tokenized version of it and send those together, and then and how that can transform the world. But people are more interested in fast term games. So
most of them. Yes.
well, in regards to these fast term games, right? I think there's a lot of regulatory alignment, because there could be some big regulatory shifts that cause coins to go up or down.
Sure, yeah,
Case in
absolutely.
point, yesterday, SEC dropped their Ripple case.
So
now that caused a little bit of a jump.
Yeah.
Went up
But I think that was already factored in
that
a
was
month
already
ago.
factored in a month ago.
Yeah.
So can you talk a little bit about that? Why was a company like Ripple targeted by SEC?
So I mean, SEC. I don't want to say too many things about the SEC, but a lot of people have spoken about them, and I think there's a regime change now. There's a mindset saying, I think
big.
Gary Gensler is probably out, and there's a new crypto and AI czar. So things are changing, and I think crypto is on the table in terms of any conversations around treasury, etc. in the US. And I mean, they are still market leaders when it comes to frameworks, when it comes to consensus and things like that, right?
Yeah.
So, but you couple that with people understanding the markets a little better. People or entities like BlackRock coming in for ETFs. So now there's skin in the game. You've got the Mubadala investments
From Abu Dhabi.
From Abu Dhabi,
The
the sovereign wealth fund.
Tech division, let's
Yes.
say.
So when you have institutional
And
investors,
let's just say, sorry to interrupt, the Mubadala also, you mentioned Abu Dhabi, $2 billion.
they're in Binance
Last week into
of course.
Binance.
Yeah. So
which is
when that
huge.
happens, there's a tectonic shift in the mindset. When you have institutional players with skin in the game, then regulatory frameworks become clearer, more nuanced, and that's only a good thing.
No, I agree. I agree. I think time is shifting. I think how long have you been in crypto, Stanford?
I've been in crypto for like 6 years, but as an employee of BitOasis, about 3.5 years.
Okay, so with let's say closely followed crypto, been in crypto 6 years. Let's say like maybe 2 years prior to that. That's probably when your attention was there. So like let's say 8 years.
Yeah.
Over 8 years, that's 2 cycles.
Oh yeah, that's 2 cycles.
So
Three? I think three. Yeah.
okay, one of the things I've noticed when it comes to human psychology
Yeah.
is the effect that people have towards something when it's here
Yeah.
as to when it's here.
Yeah.
And
FOMO.
yes, the FOMO.
The
and
FOMO,
the FOMO
yeah.
when it goes there, and then when it goes here, the
Yeah.
mass
Yeah.
flooding.
Yeah, and that's what professional traders and arbitrage houses do, right? They wait for retail sentiment to get into a frenzy, and then they short the market and they rinse and repeat that cycle. I mean, that's again the nature of the beast. I would put the onus on the platforms that onboard retail consumers to make them aware of the risk. Disclosures are very important, and like somebody like us, we prominently put those disclaimers out there saying you can lose almost all your value in crypto. So research, understand the risk that you're taking. There are different categories in Vara. You have your retail investors, you have your qualified investors, you've got your institutional investors. Depending on the type of categories, that is the limits that we give
So we
them.
have some prop trading activities, and when we have some meetings with other institutions that have adopted prop trading, we've seen some ridiculous strategies
Yeah.
when it comes to crypto and people that are advising their portfolios. I think basic sound financial advice is, it's not financial advice. It's just say, if you're creating a portfolio, maybe hedge it, right?
Yeah, of course.
Maybe implement some
hedging
risk
strategies, yeah.
strategies
Absolutely.
to it.
Yeah.
So I think in general, people that they tend to get too greedy, and
Yeah, yeah.
you've just mentioned someone who would lose their entire value. That would mean he'd put most of his value in it, and
Of
I don't
course.
think that's sound
Yeah, it isn't. Yeah.
financial strategy at the end of the day. So every time it comes with things come with common sense.
Yes.
And obviously, this is the nature of a lot of people. They want to make the big payoff,
Yeah.
right? They want to make the big payoff. They want to get the house paid. They want to get the
Yeah.
car paid, and then but maybe take things step at a time,
course.
and then realize what the actual thing is, and then go on to it. But when you look at the kind of the periods right now that we're facing, as of today, 20th of March, we're looking at a relatively precarious position. We haven't had altcoin season yet.
No.
A lot of people were betting on that,
Yeah.
and when I mentioned these crazy strategies, in particular, this case had basically banked on $10 million on altcoins to go up. It didn't. 40% drawdown. When they expected 600x.
Yeah. I mean,
So where are we? What is this stage right now with the currently?
I think markets are choppy, and it will be choppy for the foreseeable future.
Not financial advice.
Not financial advice, obviously. I mean, you need to research. You need to do your due diligence, before investing in anything, and that's just sound common sense, right? I mean, just invest in things that once you only do your due diligence.
How much of that is macro in terms of right now? We see the tariffs popping
Yeah.
up, global
The
trade
strategic
wars,
reserve.
strategic. So we get those things.
Yeah.
I also feel that like if you look at the global sentiment, there's always there's right now fear of World War III, which is somewhat vibrating around. Does that kind of add to the situation?
Probably, yeah. Our industry is very nascent, so these signals do have considerable shifts in the market, and you can't predict that, right? You don't know who'll say what. I mean, people in the position of power says something, and then the market either tanks 15-20% or goes up. Like I said, don't go all in. Do your research. Be conservative.
Yeah. I'm pretty, of the opinion that right now, when we look at how we're going to take it forward, it's a lot of over fear, and I think when we touched upon the earlier point of regulating from a place of fear will naturally lead to harsher, stricter decisions and bigger barriers to overcome. So it's not a regulating from a place of love or anything. It's just a place of understanding.
Of course.
And one of the understandings is that, because I think the nature of the beast is so extreme in crypto that you can go from here to here and here very
very
fast,
volatile.
very volatile. And if you're not, sound strategically, you can get kind of wiped out. I think, those elements create that bigger reaction.
Sure.
I think when you look at the human psychological responses, they tend to get a little bit crazy. But I don't know. Do you echo that sentiment? Or
I do echo. Again, not financial advice, but like I said, it's our industry is so nascent. So any signal could move the market either way. It's very important to educate yourself, be conservative if you're just starting out, right? And and even if you don't invest, it's a really exciting industry just to learn about the technology, right? Blockchain is just not crypto. Blockchain is technology that has so many use cases. Like for the UAE Pass, it runs on blockchain.
So how is regular people to benefit from blockchain? Just off your...
So they don't really need to understand the nuts and bolts of the technology.
Even if we're going out a little bit, I just...
So for example, the example is the UAE Pass, right? I think last week DED came out and they're looking at Vara to see how they can tokenize their title deeds. There are a lot of use cases. It's immutable, so that's fantastic. So fraud and theft is reduced. But I'm talking about blockchain technology and not crypto, right? So there are a lot of use cases, and it's important that the wider public understand at least the basics of blockchain.
Yeah. And by the way, in terms of the use of blockchain technology, I think one of the interesting technology which I noticed is that, for example, people in different countries, they can hire each other and receive payments, salaries with the use of wallets, the use of payments. For example, I know that some people just wanted to receive the salary through Swift, but Swift is very tough, especially if there is a war in specific country, right? Where there's sanctions, where the bank controls and check each other. So it usually takes around 2 weeks, or they saying that it's less, but in reality it's more. And here we use cryptocurrency and blockchain technologies actually to make it fast.
So there's that's essentially how Ripple is kind of leading the way. Like when people differentiate, what is the difference in, for example, this company or other ones? Like I was speaking to one company in Abu Dhabi yesterday, under the guidance of Abu Dhabi Hub 71. It's called One Money. These are stablecoin payment companies which actually work in exactly that way, and you could be a multinational company and want to pay your staff in stablecoins. There's a lot of taking, for example, Indian rupee. If you need to take it into USDT, you can make those exchanges and pay a slew of people across the world. So that itself is just kind of changing the whole way. Settlement time is T0. It's not T+1, T+2. It's a very, very amazing initiative to the
But to be a little contrarian, yes, it's fantastic to be T+0 in the remittance field, but you don't want to be an absolute T+0 because of things like right to recourse, fraud and things like that, right? So there has to be a happy balance. Yes, they solve for latency, but I don't think too many people would want it to be instantaneous to that second.
It's true. I think those points are well endowed right now in the whole environment. But what is your view if you were to kind of do something right now in a compliant way? What are you looking at for the whole? Because I personally feel that if you are to advise as compliance, a lot of people just think it's about getting fined or not getting fined. Do you feel that right now the best entrepreneurs understand compliance, and how important is it for any business regarding of crypto, non-crypto, to understand compliance, especially those that are dealing in international trades and significant numbers?
Sure. I mean, I have an inherent bias because I will always wear my compliance hat on, but I think it's pivotal to your growth, right? I keep saying this. Most companies should have the mantra of growth with guardrails.
Yeah.
I mean, it takes years to build reputation, but takes a second to lose it, right? So and I think most entrepreneurs and most founders understand this, and that's why the stone from the top, right from the get-go, a lot of founders invest pretty heavily in controllership functions, just not compliance, right? It's risk, audit, fraud, ABC, the works. Without that, I mean, it's open season, right? And when I say controllership, cybersecurity is also a big part of that, right? So founders and entrepreneurs understand that if you don't have the fundamentals in place, you're just setting yourself up for a big fall later.
Nice. I think that's well put. It's more people are understanding, I think, what we should be at or where we should be at. And it's a matter of just, following those steps that are that will lead us to the path of least resistance and go forward. So I'd say for now, I think that was a, pleasurable thing. Let's end it on some personal questions.
Sure.
What's your favorite, movie about finance, or what type of, what's your passion with films in this regard?
I always wear my compliance hat on. I like The Big Shot.
Big Short.
I know. I expected, by the way, to
Yeah, I
hear
mean,
this.
I'm sorry. It's
I
just
wanted to say this.
a bit boring that way.
Mark Lewis? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, there's precedence, right? Margin Call as well. They're very, very similar to my industry. So, yeah, I have a soft corner for those two films. Yeah.
And what's your favorite football team?
I mean, that's an easy answer. I'm a die-hard Arsenal fan. I've gone to Ashburton Grove many times. I've seen many matches live. So yeah, I mean, die-hard Arsenal fan.
So as an Arsenal fan, do you have any compliance tips for fans that are overly eager that they're going to win the league? Or?
Yeah, I mean, temper expectations. It'll happen eventually.
Amazing. All right. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Stanford.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate
Okay.
the opportunity.